For men in Australia, the term gendered violence or domestic violence often feels like it only flows in one direction. When a man assaults or injures a woman, which is of course absolutely wrong, it's often highlighted as a clear case of gendered violence. But when the reverse happens and a woman attacks or harms a man, which is just as unacceptable, the narrative shifts. Why does it seem to be called everything but gendered violence in that case? Here are some recent examples from our public broadcaster, the ABC. This case is from June 2025. Prosecutors appeal sentence of man who killed 2 women in 24 hours. This guy, Xiaozheng Lin, pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of 2 sex workers in Melbourne. Why did he do it? Xiaozheng Lin's victims, both sex workers who were seeing Lin as a client when he killed them and stole their money and possessions to help pay off his gambling debts. Yeah, he's a scumbag. Nobody's denying that. But of course, the ABC can't help themselves but to bring up gendered violence, reporting that the justice system did not value the lives of migrant sex workers as highly as others. They're acting as if the only reason he killed the women is because of their gender and profession. No, as I said, he's a scumbag who wanted to rob them, cover up his crime, and pay off his gambling debts. Enough said. Also in June, ACT Attorney General Tara Shane reveals she was sexually assaulted by a stranger as government debates women's safety. She said, "I come to this as a person who has been sexually assaulted in public in broad daylight." Okay, that's terrible, she continued. "I haven't ever spoken about it." When explaining why not, she said, "I also didn't speak out about it because it was by a stranger, and there would have been plenty of comments about how did I get myself into this situation." Okay, that sounds like pure speculation on her part. She then called the hypothetical public reaction extraordinarily unfair, adding, "It has meant I have some unresolved trauma from it because I felt too ashamed to talk to anybody at the time." Now, what happened to her is truly terrible, but speculating about what others might say, and then labelling that speculation as unfair to her, seems rather unfair to the rest of us, doesn't it? She continued, "I don't want to make it about me, but what I'm trying to do is demonstrate that women are unsafe everywhere. It doesn't matter about the lighting, footpaths, whether you're in the home or somewhere else, all these places, women's lives are at risk." Look, I'm not taking away from her what happened, but this paints a picture of Canberra as perhaps the most unsafe place in the world. The article then supports this by stating that 93% of women respondents said they did not feel safe exercising at night in Canberra. To be statistically fair, they should also include what percentage of men don't feel safe exercising at night in Canberra. They seem to be implying a disparity without providing the comparative data, which, frankly, is statistically misleading, isn't it? I mean, I don't go out on the streets at night either due to my own safety concerns. And of course, the article couldn't resist mentioning gender-based violence. Just this month, July, they published "Domestic Violence Victim Survivors Share Early Warning Signs of Abuse." Unsurprisingly, every single victim mentioned is female. "Controlling how long I should wear my hair." Rachel, 40s, Tasmania. "Always wanting to be with me." Charlotte, 50s, Tasmania. "I thought it would settle down." Hannah, Melbourne, Naarm, the traditional Indigenous name for the Melbourne region. "Extremely jealous of my male friends." Carrie, Tasmania. "I could feel myself disappearing into the background." Susie, Tasmania. "My self-confidence plummeted." Sarah, Tasmania. "Pressure early on for commitment." Deborah, Tasmania. They don't mention a single male victim. I can only assume it's on purpose. Either they cherry-picked their victims, or they chose not to interview men. Either way, it's statistically dishonest. The ABC, of course, framed masculinity as a bad thing. In June, Respect Victoria challenges men to question masculinity stereotypes in new ad campaign. Inside the confidential sessions challenging toxic masculinity in teenage boys. Whenever it comes to a man perpetrating a crime against a woman, for example also in June, Canberra public servant jailed for raping and assaulting his wife during their relationship. The ABC are sure to categorise it as domestic violence. Another example, Adelaide man Tyson Hubbard jailed for domestic violence against woman living with disability. Shows the same categorisation. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to dismiss the seriousness of these crimes. I'm just showing you how the ABC choose to frame them based on the gender of the victims/perpetrators. But when it comes to female perpetrators, for example, again in June on the ABC, former Beauty and the Geek contestant accused of Port Lincoln murder. The ABC make no mention of domestic violence, even though it clearly is, with the article stating, a former reality TV contestant accused of murdering her partner in Port Lincoln last week has appeared in court as police reveal they are yet to locate some of the man's remains. The accused is 34-year-old Tamika Chesser, who appeared on Beauty and the Geek in 2010. She has been charged with the murder of her partner, 39-year-old Julian Story. Not only was Mr. Story murdered, he was dismembered, with the police saying, "I can tragically say that we have not recovered the head of Julian Story." In a more recent article from July, they wrote, "An extensive search by police and emergency services has not recovered Mr. Story's head, with the search currently paused." It's a terrible crime, certainly worthy of condemnation, but the ABC failed to mention anything about domestic or gendered violence. You can check for yourself. Similarly, also in June, the ABC reported, woman charged with murder after man found at unit with stab wounds. The victim was identified as 65-year-old Andrew Sorby Adams. He was found inside the unit with multiple stab wounds to his body. The suspect is a 30-year-old woman whom police said lived at the complex and who has since been charged with murder, trespass and property damage. Again, the ABC mentioned nothing about gendered violence. Another example of ABC's biases, also from June, mother who stabbed two sons asks court for supervised trips outside of mental health facility. Again, clearly it's a case of domestic violence, but is not labelled as such. Basically, 38-year-old Megan Jane Somerville was found not guilty by mental incompetence of stabbing her children. The father of one of the sons said, "My son gets extremely scared of the dark and paranoid, as if he is reliving the incident. He is often scared of people, women, and those that are bigger than him." The father himself is also suffering, saying, "I suffer from severe nightmares and panic attacks, waking up abruptly, fearing she has been released from prison and has taken my son." He also described an incident where Ms. Somerville had threatened him with knives just days before the stabbing. "Megan was on top of my chest with a kitchen knife, threatening me, and I was petrified." Interestingly, they state that the court had previously heard Ms. Somerville was experiencing an episode of psychosis characterized by delusional thoughts at the time of the incident and had used both methamphetamine and cannabis in the hours beforehand. The court found her offending was substantially caused by self-induced intoxication, but that she was not guilty of the offence of attempted murder by reason of mental incompetence. I wonder what would happen if a man knowingly took methamphetamine and cannabis and then went and stabbed his children. I wonder if he would be found not guilty. And finally, if there hasn't been enough proof already, the case of mushroom murderer Erin Patterson, who laced a beef Wellington lunch with death cap mushrooms, murdering 3 of her 4 house guests, her parents-in-law, as well as her mother-in-law's sister. It's been all over the news of late, but I was hesitant to talk about it as it was an ongoing trial until recently. The ABC reported, Erin Patterson found guilty of murder over death cap mushroom lunch. It was the most heinous of crimes. Ms. Patterson lured her guests to her house for the lunch by lying about a cancer diagnosis. She carried out a sinister deception on her in-laws by using a nourishing meal as a vehicle for lethal doses of the toxic mushrooms. She faked illness by claiming to be unwell on the day of the lunch so as not to draw suspicion on herself. And she embarked on a sustained cover-up to conceal the truth about the lunch. But yet, the ABC chose not to label this horrific crime as domestic violence. These examples clearly demonstrate how the ABC's framing distorts the reality of violence in Australia. Time and time again, the public broadcaster's selective labelling of violence paints a clear picture. When it comes to gendered or domestic violence, their narrative often flows only one way, creating a statistically dishonest and incomplete understanding of the issue. It's time for our ABC to apply these terms consistently, regardless of who the perpetrator or victim is.